Dion was, without question, the most frustrating and ill-disciplined student that I've ever had the misfortune to see. But he was also one of the most endearing. He pushed the limits of my professionalism. I was either laughing too much at what he was doing wrong to stop and tell him off, or I was so irritated by what he was doing that it took all of my strength not to strangle him. I first met Dion when I came to St. John's in 2004. He was in my care group, which was 9 Blue. I knew nothing about him, though I had read that he had been in trouble in Year 8 for setting fire to his RE book. Apparently he was trying to dry it out. There's a little bit of water in his story. A colleague recently pointed out that quite a few of the current Year 12 leadership group were in that care group, and there were indeed quite a few high-achieving, sensible students, and then there was Dion. He was also in my English class that year. He couldn't really write a sentence, he couldn't spell, more importantly, he couldn't be bothered. Work was done poorly, if at all. He had an assignment, a fractured fairy tale that read, "Once upon a time there was a frog, but he died." It didn't matter where you put him in class, you could right under your nose, he misbehaved. He was getting in trouble for things like bringing inappropriate material into school, issuing things at people, and putting substances in other people's pencil cases. His general learning indicators on his pastoral care report read: participation in school activities, inconsistent; punctuality, inconsistent; uniform and grooming, unsatisfactory; use of diary, inconsistent; consideration and care for others, unsatisfactory. At this point, Dion was still attempting to deny his misdeeds and shift the blame. That would soon end. For me, Year 11 was a repeat of Year 9. I had him again in my care group and for English. But Dion had changed. He came into his own. He owned his misdeeds, he was proud of them, and he wore them as badges of honour. He could wreak havoc, and yet, as you've heard, he was hardly ever at school. Thank God he was often absent, because my Year 11 English class was madness when he was in the room. I had to write a memo. Dion has been behaving in an extremely disruptive manner, and I have removed him from class a number of times. His behaviour is erratic, but when it is disruptive, it makes it impossible to teach. The whole class find him to be a constant source of entertainment. He can't keep still, he swears incessantly. He carries on loud and inappropriate conversations with others across the room. He throws things around the room at other students. About a week after that, Dion was briefly suspended from school, and that followed 3 incidents. The first was the litany of complaints from me. The second was sending an inappropriate message about the attractiveness of another student's mother. Anyone working on a computer at the time received that message. The third thing was accessing a teacher's computer and altering the files. Dion was interviewed by Mr. Allen, the principal, and proudly confessed to all of it. Academically, it was a sad time. His Term 3 pastoral care report reads: Dion has produced a very disappointing result for this term. I note that in some subjects he has failed to meet even the most basic requirements for any measurable success. And the general learning indicators: participation, unsatisfactory; punctuality, unsatisfactory; uniform grooming, unsatisfactory; use of diary, continues. But there was more to Dion than this. School was never going to define Dion, and I think he knew that. I knew it. Dion had qualities far beyond what was indicated in his reports, which was why it was so frustrating that his attitude towards school was so poor, when he obviously had abilities that served him well outside of school and in the workplace. I used to ask him, "Why are you here? You're wasting our time and yours." Part of me wanted to get rid of him, but it seemed that he was doing just fine without school. He'd been working at the supermarket since he was in Year 9, and my parents do their shopping there on Dock Mart. When I told them that Dion had been killed, my father asked me whether that was the boy that had super-glued his own hat to the desk. My mother is elderly. She once told me about this fine young man who used to take groceries and heavy items to the car for her. "He goes to your school," she said. "I give him the car keys and he goes and he loads it up for me." I said, "Oh, what's his name?" And she said, "Dion Prato." And I said, "You gave that boy your car keys?" Dion wasn't always a fine young man, but it's a tragedy that we won't get to see what a fine young man Dion was going to be.